everyone, Sabrina here from Scrappy Tales Crafts, and today I'm showing you part 2 of my 10 cards 1 kit videos using the January 2020 Hero Arts card kit. So for card 6, I'm taking the background newspaper text stamp from the stamp set. I'm inking it up with some brown ink, and I'm going to stamp it on its second generation onto the pink shimmery cardstock that came in the kit, and then I'll just cut that rectangle out with my scissors. And I will be placing this panel inside of that vellum polka dot embossed envelope that you can see off to the side, and I did show you that I made that in part 1. And I wanted to add some flowers onto this, so I chose 2 that I had in my pile of die cuts, and I will be coloring those in to look kind of like daisies. And if you saw in part 1, all I do to create that look is use my Copic markers. So I add yellow to the centers of the flowers and then C1 and C0 to the petals. I'm also going to add a little bit of dimension to my leaves using a G43 Copic marker. And now I'm going to work on this little letter. I wanted to layer this behind my polka dot vellum envelope, and I just cut a small rectangle from this dark pink shimmer cardstock that came in the kit, and I'm going to glue 2 of the stamps that came in the stamp set. And one of those stamps I colored earlier in part 1, and I didn't end up using it, so I thought I would use it for this card. And I did color those in with my Copic markers. Now I'm just assembling this vellum envelope with my art glitter glue, and now I can start layering everything inside the envelope. So here are my colored daisies as well as my shaded leaves. So I'm just going to arrange them inside this envelope, and I love that you can see through it because it is vellum. I decided to glue the leaves directly inside the envelope, so I'm just adding glue to the stems. That way the leaves are loose. And when I went to put this pink panel inside the envelope, I realized that those stems were getting caught and prevented the pink letter from going inside, so I did just trim those off, and now it slides in pretty easily. So now I'm going to glue my flowers onto my pink panel. And there is a bit of an overcast happening right now, so the lighting is a little off here, but it doesn't last very long. Okay, and I wanted to use a butterfly, so I'm taking one of my die cut white butterflies and I'm just going to add some yellow to it. I am going to use 2 shades of Altenew yellow inks, and I will have them listed down in my description as well as my blog post. I'm going to add a darker yellow to the center of the butterfly and let that fade out into a lighter yellow towards the tips of its wings. And I am using a Picket Fence Studios small ink blending brush here to apply my ink. And in case you haven't seen part 1, this is how I colored all of my florals and butterflies for my 10 cards. Right now I'm going over the butterfly's wings with a Sakura glitter dust pen, and this will just add a really pretty sparkle to my butterfly. And now I'm going to work on my sentiment. I chose thank you, and I will stamp that onto a white die cut banner with some Memento gray flannel ink. And here you can see I kind of laid out my card, and I like how that looks, so I'm going to adhere it down. I'm going to first start by adhering this pink envelope. And here I'm just going to show you how that butterfly turned out and how sparkly it is. And off camera, I did add that sparkle pen to my flowers and leaves, just to give them a little sparkle too. And now I'm going to glue down this vellum envelope. I'm making sure to only add glue behind the pink paper. That way you won't see any of the glue through the vellum. Now I'm going to glue down my butterfly. I'm only adding glue to its body, that way the wings can pop up. And I was deliberating if I should have that pink paper loose, but in the end I decided to just glue it down. And this card kind of looks shabby chic. I love the pink and yellow colors. I mean, I kind of stuck with a color scheme for all 10 cards. So all of them kind of look similar. And they look like they're a part of a collection. To finish this card, I'm just going to scatter a few Trinity Stamps pearls. And I do use these pearls for a lot of my cards. I really feel like they match the theme of this kit. They're very elegant. And they just add a little something to the card, a little something extra. Okay, so I'm going to attach this panel onto my A2 card base. I decided to add ATG tape to my card just because those pearls weren't finished drying and I didn't want to risk moving them. So here's the close-up. For card 7, I off-camera added that newspaper stamp to a cream card panel cut to 4 by 5 1/4 inches, and I did stamp that with a light blue ink. And I did that a lot in part 1, so I figured I didn't have to do it again. Right now, I am taking that metallic turquoise ink that came in the kit, and I just added some of it to the top of my card panel, and I added some water to it to try to make the pigment move and create some drips. I did have to use a lot of water to get the effect that I was looking for, so I would recommend using watercolor paper. This is actually some really cheap Michaels paper that I'm trying to use up from my stash. So it's not the greatest. You can see that it's very warped at this point. So I'm going to heat set it. I will go over this panel with my heat tool and a dry paper towel to sop up that extra water. And I'm also going to flip this panel around and heat it from the back. And one tip I learned from Tim Holtz, which I never actually do, but it might be helpful, is if you want to minimize warping, which you won't if you use cheap cardstock like this, but if you want to minimize warping in general, try to heat your paper in the air. So try not to heat it on top of a mat like I'm doing here. That's because the heat traps underneath the paper and it curls the paper upwards, and that creates warping. And if you have it in the air, the heat will just pass through, so there won't be as much warping. But of course, I didn't listen to that advice. So in order to flatten it out a bit, you can see it's not super warped right now, and that's because I ran it through my die cutting machine. I just placed it between my two plates and ran it through a couple times, and that flattened it out quite a bit. Not fully, but I will just add a bunch of tape behind this and that will flatten it out pretty well. Off camera, I die cut a circle frame using 2 circle dies from my stash from some silver cardstock, and I did add some foam tape behind it. You could make this a shaker card, but I felt like it wasn't necessary. So I did, of course, add acetate behind this window. It's just what I do. I love that look. And now I'm going to assemble some flowers around this silver frame. So I first laid down a few leaves and a white rose, as well as 2 more yellow butterflies. I had a few left over from the last card, and I love blue and yellow together. So this is sort of an artsy card. Pretty happy with how it turned out. And I was struggling to figure out what to do with that metallic ink, but in the end I just decided to be messy with it, and I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. And I love that you can subtly see the text background. It just looks like sort of like a mixed media background. I'm going to tuck in a few more leaves. And you can see I also added my die cut sentiment banner. I did white heat embossed Hello Friend onto a black die cut banner. And I'll just attach that with my art glitter glue. And I thought about adding pearls. I think I do add pearls. Yes. I'll just attach those with my art glitter glue. And I did find out that this kit sold out, which is a bummer because this kit is stunning, but I hope those of you who did get the kit can get some inspiration from my videos, and even those who didn't buy the kit, I'm pretty sure perhaps you have at least one floral or butterfly stamp or die set in your stash. So these cards can work with any supply you have. But I'm not surprised that it sold out. It is a beautiful kit. So here you can see now I'm going to add a ton of ATG tape to this. And again, I'm just wanting that to lay completely flat. And I did mat that onto some black cardstock, and that is cut to the size of an A2 card base. And then I'll just attach that to my 110-pound white Nina card base. And that will complete card number 7. And you can see that metallic shine when I tilt the card in the light. Super pretty. Moving on to card 8, this one's actually my favorite, and I decided to leave in the coloring just because I did a few things differently. You can see that I am blending on a scrap white piece of cardstock, and that is because I'm trying to fade my pink into white, and I found that when I was blending on my glass mat, I was picking up the ink that was on my glass mat and blending it into the white areas of my rose. So I just found that I had a little bit more control using it or blending it on top of this white scrap. And then as usual, I will just color in the stems with a Copic marker. And then I'll just color in this rosebud the exact same way. And the color ink that I'm using is called Rosebud. So very fitting, I think. And I'm using very little of it. I want it to be a pretty light pink. All right, so now I'm going to show you how I colored in this baby's breath, and I used stippling motions, and I'm concentrating most of my dots towards the center of the flower, and then I'm letting the dots fade out towards the edges. So I'm just stippling a little bit less around the edges of the flower, and that truly does look like baby's breath. I'm super happy with how that turned out. And then I colored the leaves the exact same way I have been, just adding a little bit of G43 to the centers of the leaves. Okay, so everything is colored. I'm now going to assemble my flower wrap, which I die cut from some craft cardstock and embossed with a polka dot embossing folder by Cuttlebug. And I thought that it would be cute to line the inside with some vellum to make it kind of look like it was lined with tissue paper. And I had a lot of this vellum left over that I embossed with the same polka dot embossing folder. So as you can see, I used it on a lot of my cards. I just love the look of embossing on vellum. And like I said, I thought that this kind of looked like tissue paper that florists would line their bouquets with. So I just attached that vellum with my art glitter glue to the back of my craft flower wrap. And now I'm going to start assembling my bouquet. And I'm going to group the roses pretty close together. I'm just staggering them slightly. You can see I kind of put 4 to a row, and then I'm going to add 2 above that row. And I forgot to mention that I did ink blend some roses on the back, if that makes sense. So I turned the die over and ink blended a few of them on the back and a few of them on the front. And that way the roses are facing different directions and it looks a little bit more organic that way. I'm going to add in my leaves here and my baby's breath. And I did assemble this off camera, so I kind of know where I want to place things. So I'm not just gluing things down freehand and hoping for the best. I did play around with this bouquet for quite a bit to find an arrangement that I liked. Now I'm just adding in my baby's breath And I like that I used 3 bunches of baby's breath, and it creates sort of like a visual triangle. So it looks very pleasing to the eye. So to finish this up, I'm just going to add a few more of the small leaves. And I love this bouquet. It's definitely my favorite. You can see I'm adding my rosebuds into the bouquet as well. And like I said in part 1, those rosebuds are really nice fillers. If I didn't know what to put in an area, I usually put a little rosebud. I decided to add some more vellum to the outside, kind of like the tissue paper was folding over. So I'll just glue a little triangle of that onto my craft flower wrap. And then I'm going to take some of the pink ribbon that came in the kit, and I'll tie a small bow off camera and attach that to my vellum triangle that I just glued down. And now I'll work on the background, and surprise, surprise, I'm going to do what I've been doing for pretty much every card, and I'm going to stamp this text background using the 2nd generation of the Rosebud Memento ink onto this light shimmery pink cardstock that came in the kit. You can see that I had some trouble with one area of the stamp. It just wasn't stamping off the first time. So there are some dark spots, but my bouquet will end up covering those up, as you can see. And here you can see that little bow I tied, and now I'm going to stamp out the sentiment onto a gray die cut banner. I chose I love you, and I'm going to white heat emboss that. Alright, so now I'm ready to glue this onto my panel. So I'll just attach everything with my art glitter glue. And before I press down on that bouquet, I'm going to slide my sentiment underneath. And I like that everything looks straight, so I'm just going to press down to adhere everything. And then, of course, I'm going to add some more Trinity Stamps pearls to finish this card off. And when I showed this card to my dad, he thought that the craft flower wrap looked kind of like an ice cream cone, which honestly is a really good idea. And I wish I did a bonus card showing how you can create an ice cream with this die. So you can use the die sort of as a wafer cone and then just add 2 circle dies on top of it as ice cream scoops. So there's an idea for you if you wanted to know another way to use that die. I'll just attach these with my art glitter glue, and that will complete card number 8 after I attach it to my card base here. And again, I'm going to add the ATG tape to my card base since those pearls are still wet and I don't want them to move. And this card is so gorgeous. I love the pink gradients on those roses. They turned out really nice. On to card 9, I'm going to do some partial die cutting here. So I'm taking a heart die from my stash, and I'm going to place it onto my Gemini cutting plates, and I'm going to leave the top half of the heart outside of the plates, and everything that's inside the plates will cut through, and everything outside the plates won't cut through. So I die cut the bottom, and then I'm going to die cut the top. And I will link to a Jennifer McGuire video that talks all about partial die cutting. It's a little bit difficult. I actually had to cut 2 panels out because the first one I cut the heart out completely by accident. So, but it's a really pretty technique. As you can see, the heart is still inside my panel, but you can still see the shape of the heart. And you can see I'm just tucking in a few flowers above that heart, creating another arrangement here. And in part 1, I created a vintage purple sympathy card, and I loved how that turned out, so I wanted to do it again for this card. So I did color in all of my flowers the exact same way that I did for the card in part 1. I used, I think, grape jelly and Lulu lilac Lulu something. I will have it linked down below. But I used 2 Memento purple inks to color these flowers. And then the white ones, I used my Copic markers. And for the insides of the flowers, that dark black color, I used a C8 marker to color those in. So here you can see I'm just creating another arrangement. And that little broccoli looking leaf is that same baby's breath flower. I just cut it from green cardstock and I added green stipples to it instead of gray. And it created an interesting looking leaf. It kind of looks like broccoli. So I added a few of those into my flower arrangement. And you can see that I am cutting off the stems for most of my flowers and leaves here. And you will see what I'm going to do with those stems shortly. But I am keeping them off to the side. And you can see I'm doing a lot of overlapping, which can seem a little scary at first because you don't want to cover up your beautiful ink blended flowers, but in a real flower arrangement there would be a lot of overlapping. So I'm making sure to especially overlap my leaves. Okay, so I'm just going to add that last little flower bud there. And then tuck in a few more greenery. And off camera I stamped For You, and that sentiment did come in the stamp set. I just cut it apart so that I could stack it. And I stamped that onto a small white die cut heart with some purple ink. And here you can see what I'm doing with those stems. I'm going to use my art glitter glue and add them to the bottom of the heart. And I love how this looks. It looks like the heart was bunching the flowers together and the little stems are hanging out underneath. And the stems are at different lengths and they're different shades of green. So it looks really cool. I'm going to add some foam tape behind my heart sentiment and pop that up on top of my craft heart. And then I will pop up my little butterfly right next to my sentiment. I did decide to color in the butterfly's body with a C8 marker. And that will pretty much complete this card. I'm going to flip this panel over, add some ATG tape, and attach that to my A2 card base. And it's beautiful as it is now. I kind of wish I left it alone, but I had this extra butterfly that I ink blended, so I decided to just add that to the bottom left corner. And now that will complete card number 9. Here's a close-up. Okay, finally we're on my last card, and I'll be honest, I completely ran out of ideas at this point, so I'm kind of using leftovers that I had on my desk. So I had die cut this white envelope out pretty early on, thinking that maybe I would ink blend onto it, wasn't sure. So I'm going to leave it white. I'll just assemble it with my art glitter glue. And I had some hearts. Like I said, from the last card, I die cut through one craft panel, so I had one craft heart, and I had a little purple heart. So I did the same thing I did for my last card. I stamped For You. I stamped it with some brown ink, and I'll just clear heat emboss that. I'm also going to white heat emboss my sentiment, Sending My Love, onto a black die cut banner. And then off camera, I created the same background that I did for most of my cards using that newspaper text stamp. And I stamped that with a light pink ink onto the light shimmery pink cardstock that came in the kit. And I cut that down to 4 by 5¼ inches. I'm going to pop up my purple heart and pop that onto my craft heart. And here you can see I'm going to overlap the heart on top of the envelope. I went ahead and die cut some of the leaves from some silver cardstock and some vellum, so I'll just add those inside my envelope. And then these were my leftover flowers that I colored up with my Alt New inks. I'm going to add some more Stardust glitter pen to these roses, just to give them a little sparkle. And then I'll just add a little bit of green to this rosebud stem. And now I can assemble this envelope. I'm attaching everything with my art glitter glue. So I would like to know what you guys thought of this month's kit. Clearly people liked it because it sold out. I loved this kit, but I will say that I haven't been posting many Hero Arts card kit videos, and that's because I've been struggling with coming up with ideas for their kits lately. So hopefully I'm kind of over my creative block and I can go back to making Hero Arts card kit videos because I know you guys love them. And I'm always up for the challenge of the hero kits, coming up with different ideas. You can see I'm tucking in a few more broccoli greenery pieces here. Oh, and I guess I show you how I made those. Just like I did with the baby's breath, I'm taking a green marker and stippling on some dots onto this die cut. And it creates a really cool looking greenery. So here I'm just going to fiddle around with it a little bit more, trying to figure out what I like. At this point I ran out of my rosebuds, so I didn't have any filler flowers, so I'm trying my best to use my greenery as fillers. But I like how that looks. I'll go ahead and adhere everything. Oh, I guess I had one more rosebud. So I tucked that one in. And then I'll just add a little bit more greenery. And believe it or not, that huge pile of die cuts that you saw in part 1, I used all of them. And I had to die cut a few more flowers. And I think I die cut each flower 7 times at the beginning of the video, so I think I probably used like 8 or 9 of each of my flowers to create my 10 cards here. So I'm going to adhere everything down now. I'm going to add foam tape to the right side of this heart and art glitter glue to the left. That is because the envelope is a little bit dimensional, so the foam tape kind of evens out the dimension on the envelope. I'll flip that panel around, trim off the rest of that banner. You can see I added a pink butterfly beside my sentiment there. I'll just add some ATG tape and adhere that right onto my card base, and that will complete card number 10. Super pretty. Again, it looks very nice with all the other cards I created. I love the color scheme I came up with for these 10 cards 1 kit video. Alright, so now I'm going to show you all 10 cards that I created in part 1 and part 2. I really enjoyed working with this kit. It is super stunning. I love that these cards can work for any occasion. I have some wedding cards, thinking of you, friendship, sympathy, thank you. You name it, you can probably make any sort of occasion using this kit. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please let me know which card was your favorite. If you have any questions, leave them down below and I will try to respond to you as quick as I can. If you haven't yet already, go ahead and subscribe to my channel and hit that thumbs up button. That does improve my chances of being seen on YouTube. And also hit that notification bell if you want to be aware of when I post new videos. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!